Welcome, everybody, to the inaugural episode of the podcast Cosmic, where we talk about things fandom, comics, movies, music, video games, with my very, very good friends, who I'm going to introduce right now. I'm going to let them actually introduce themselves, and then we'll go from there. I take it away. Who goes first?
Hi, I'm Artie. Nice to meet you all. Just a big fan of comics since going way back. Star Wars, horror, genre films, geekdom all the way back. So I'm glad to just spend some time, an hour a week, talking to my friends about it. And hopefully you guys show up and like it and tell us how you feel about it.
Hey, I'm George. I'm a longtime geek and nerd going, back in 40 years or so, comics, movies, you name it, I'm there. I'm looking forward to getting together once a week with these guys and discussing all that.
Keith, pretty much the same as these guys. Known them forever, love them. Going to be out talking about a lot of fun stuff. Looking forward to it. Should be quite spicy.
Spicy,
yes, indeed.
I feel like I'm really old compared to you guys. I'm like
the
only one with really
your father time. So yes. I didn't introduce myself. My name's Vlad, and I'm also a very good friend of these three gentlemen over here. We go way, way back. Some of us go back 40 years. And obviously my love for fandom and geekdom and Star Wars and video games and movies and music is part of my DNA, and I'm looking forward to having these weekly conversations with my friends, as well as whoever decides to join us. We're going to try to do this on a weekly basis. That's our goal, and we hope that you join us. Leave subscribe, and also leave comments down below for topics that we may want to talk about. So the typical format that we're going to be going with is we're going to have 3 major topics a week that we're going to touch on. It's usually about an hour podcast, and then we'll have hopefully some room at the end to kind of touch on some odds and ends, things that are going to come up. This week in particular, we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about, obviously, the Book of Boba Fett. We can't have a podcast without talking about something Star Wars related. Yeah. And then we're going to switch over to Marvel's Eternals, which is now streaming on Disney Plus as of this Wednesday. And lastly, for you video game aficionados, we're going to talk about Destiny 2, which is something that is a bit of an obsession between the 4 of us. Some more than others. Some have actually are in the top 2% of players in Destiny of all time. I'm not going to say it's not me, and I don't know which one. I wonder
who that could be. I mean,
I wonder who that could be.
That person probably doesn't have a life.
He doesn't have a life.
Family and kids. I wonder how that person does. I wonder how that person's wife stays with them if they're playing 5 hours a night and ignoring their family and job and other responsibilities, and
breathing, going to the bathroom. My only thing is I'm wondering if that person who plays as much as they do complains as much as they do about the game. That would be
hypocritical.
That would be hypocritical.
Nobody in fandom anywhere who loves comics, video games, superheroes, movies ever complains, ever, especially me. I would never do that. That's one thing I'm known for, is really being open-minded and never complaining about anything ever.
So are we going to start with Destiny, or are we going to start with something else?
Well, first of all, I'm just glad that this is being recorded. That's all I have to say.
For posterity's sake.
This is going to be recorded for posterity's sake. Let's start with the easy one, which is Book of Boba Fett. And I'd say we take, obviously we could focus on episode 3, which just dropped this week, but I think we can, since we're all playing a little bit of catch up here, we can kind of give our brief our takes on sort of the series as it is as right now. So I turn it over to you guys.
It opened up weak with the first episode for me.
Yeah.
So I really didn't have any expectations, but I really thought it would be a little bit more showing Boba Fett as a powerhouse. And I guess that was an expectation in and of itself. And having seen where it's gone, 2 more episodes in, so into the 3rd episode, I have to say I'm really enjoying it. My perception of the show has really changed. And I like all the characters they've introduced. I like the world building they're doing in this little part of Tatooine. I like what they're doing with the characters. It's just, to me, I've taken it as being the serious kind of look at Boba Fett and his badassness as we're learning a new Boba Fett. He's getting a new origin. And it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it now.
George, I think I'm one of the few people that actually enjoyed the first episode. I enjoyed that it kind of took a slow approach, because I think jumping into an action scene so soon after trying to reintroduce him would have made no sense. It's been interesting so far. I just think that if you go in without expectations, without trying to compare it to The Mandalorian, because it's trying to do its own thing, it's setting out its own little course, and I'm enjoying that. And for a lot of the little Easter eggs too that are out there for the old school Star Wars fans.
I'm going to say it. I think Mandalorian is a better Boba Fett than Boba Fett. I mean, I like Boba Fett. Don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying it too. I think it's really fun. But for me, the character I love that it's Jango Fett, the original guy. I know that he's like an old guy now. But for me, it was always like Boba Fett was basically Clint Eastwood in space. I just don't get the same feeling from this guy. But I'm enjoying the world itself and how they're portraying stuff. That's just my one gripe. Otherwise, I think it's very good. I trust Fiona and what's his name?
Well, he was Clint Eastwood in space, except for he was the Clint Eastwood that mistakenly, by accident, got knocked over by a blind guy out of the action for 10 years. And then when we saw him again, it looked like he had poop in his pants for about two-thirds of the first episode.
So I guess I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian. So just sorry for me to get on my soapbox for a second. I never considered Boba to be anything. We never saw anything in the original trilogy that made him out to be completely badass. You know, he was there. He looked great. And, you know, as I've written in the past, as some of my friends may know, I've written articles about Boba Fett where, you know, I think that Jar Jar actually caused more damage to the galaxy and more harm to the galaxy than Boba did. But with that in mind, you know, I understand what they're trying to do here. They're trying to rehabilitate the character. They're trying to recreate them. And I do believe it's not a bad show, but to me right now, it's a little inconsistent. Like the strongest parts of the show are the flashbacks, because obviously there's to me, there's a twofold thing here, which is they're trying to create sort of this honorable character, tying it into the Tusken culture, tying it into sort of building this thing up about Boba being an honorable guy. And I know there's talk out there about people saying like, he's not a badass. He's kind of a good guy. He's not this like mercenary anymore. That's fine. I understand. Like for me, I'm more interested in the stuff that's happening in the past than in the present right now. I'm sort of
by the time he got to the third episode, they've kind of explained that he's not that guy anymore.
He's not that guy anymore, but they're hitting certain beats that I'm just sort of like, okay, yeah, he's returning to the Tusken village, and they've Uncled Owen and Aunt Beru'd his village, so that sort of sends him on his quest for this. I've seen it with other people say it, and I tend to agree. This last episode, as much fun as it was, felt a little out of place in the Star Wars universe.
Agree.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comments on that.
I tend to agree with that. Primary colors of like sort of like primary colors on jet speeders. That was a little hokey. Like there was a lot of interesting parts. Like I actually like Danny Trejo showing up as the Rancor keeper. I thought that was freaking awesome. And that's a Robert Rodriguez thing. I like the little Amy Sedaris cameo. Well, it's not her, but you know it's the character with her pit droids in the back. All these little things are great. But I got to tell you, it was a little, you even said it, Artie, it was a little cartoony. And the thing that I liked about Mandalorian is there's a tone that exists throughout Mandalorian. This seems like it's going one way one episode, one way another, or even within the flashbacks. And I will say it, they pad a lot of time making these people walk, showing them walk and walk and walk to scenes from one scene to another.
Yeah, they only got 7 episodes.
And they only got 7 episodes. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not saying it's a bad show. I'm enjoying it. I agree with Keith. I am not enjoying it as much as Mandalorian, because what's the hook right now? That's what I need to know, what the hook is.
I think it's a different animal than the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian kind of is lone wolf and cub in space.
Correct. You're actually, and what are they trying to do here? The only thing to me that would,
I think they're trying to create a backstory, because what did he have? He was a clone, and that was it.
That was it, and they're trying to create a backstory.
He has no character outside of that.
Yeah.
Well, that goes
by linking him with the Tuskens, it's kind of giving him this kind of sense of an honor code,
and even for Tamora Morrison, I think there's something built into sort of showing some of his culture with the dance at the end of the second episode.
Yeah, I think that was a great addition. I do think you're seeing a different character, because I think what we thought as fans, being kids, when we saw him, is take everything else away from him. When we saw him, we were like, who the hell is that? That guy is so badass. The toy, the whatever. And we wanted to see him in action and do these badass things. So we imagined all this stuff around him doing flips and backflips, and like you were saying, shooting like this and killing two people across the room and this. And we're not necessarily getting that. We're getting a little older, seasoned, wiser, changing, maybe having been through.
Is he wiser?
Well, he went through a vision quest. So I do think, right, some of his decisions are like everybody can just walk into his palace, right?
Okay.
Right?
I see what you're saying.
About the episode is once I started watching it, I'm like, I shouldn't take this as seriously as an MA show. It's a teen show. Like when I looked at it, and even the speeder bikes, at first I was like, that's the worst design I've ever seen.
I didn't like
that's
it.
so unlike Star Wars. And then I thought, what do kids think are cool that they create? And again, just different show.
Banthapudu.
And once I got over that, and I got over the fact that the chase scene didn't look like anybody was going really fast anyway, but then I thought, well, that's kind of Star Wars-ish. If you remember seeing the speeder in Mos Eisley, it's like,
I could have done without the Back to the Future chase.
I could have done, because it was Biff Tannen at the end of it. It was a Biff Tannen thing. Yeah,
it was. And I thought that was kind of that upset me, only because there was a chance to have a really cool, like, chase, fun, like, really, it could have been a lot more, but they kind of made it more comic-y. And again, it's fine, whatever.
Look, it's Star Wars on TV. I'm enjoying
once
it.
I set not my standard down, but my expectation of like it being like The Mandalorian, let's say. And I just enjoyed watching it when I could sit down and go, wow, this is cool. It's cool that what's-his-face got into his bacta chamber. And now they're fighting. Well,
you know what?
And they all come and do their Power Rangers moves.
Right. Well, that was a little, but
I know, but it is silly, but it's purposely silly, just like the whole Rancor scene.
I didn't mind the Rancor scene as much.
But we liked it, but think of how silly it is.
Right.
I mean,
I do like.
Though you're not thinking about why he's in the tank. Obviously there was a lot of damage from being in the Sarlacc's stomach.
Right. Yeah, that's a big.
And I didn't mind the design of the bike so much, or those kids, because it kind of reminded me of the mods from the '60s.
Yeah, it did. Right, but I just thought the primary colors were a little jarring.
Oh, but don't forget, I think it's an homage to George Lucas being in love with like 50s and 60s cars.
Right. That's a fair assessment.
And a lot of they do a lot of these little Easter eggs, to kind of touch on.
I'll tell you what's worse
some of
than
it
all
feels
of that.
like some of it feels a little heavy-handed to me, though.
I'll tell you what's worse than all of that.
It's telegraphed.
Easter eggs can go bad, easily.
Yep. What were you going to say?
What's worse than all that to me, that what you guys are describing from a design perspective, from kind of like a cheesiness maybe, is really going with, and I understand why they did it, probably budget, but having the Hutts CGI.
Well, they've been CGI.
Right?
Well, yes and no, but they've been CGI since '97, so that's not the issue. I will say this: I give credit where credit is due.
But it's always been worse than the big puppet Boba.
Absolutely, there's no question about it, or even the toy, right?
Yeah.
I will say what I give props, especially I give it to Filoni, I give it to obviously Favreau, and Rodriguez as well, is that they're bringing in EU characters, Black Chrysanth, whatever the Wookiee's name is, Karazhan. I think that's great that they're bringing that in. Does that mean that Dr. Arfa's coming in? Is there that going on? Who's this other syndicate? Is this the mysterious syndicate? Is it the Crimson Dawn? Whatever, the Crimson Dawn from Solo. Is it Kira? Is it Kira who's going to show up? There are all these sort of ideas out there which are tying into it and building a bigger universe, which I think is awesome if that's what they're going to do. because at the end of the day, okay, it's Tatooine. What are you going to do on Tatooine, right? You know.
Let me ask you this, because we've talked about this in the past, guys. Is this really moves away, even though some of the characters are from Boba Fett himself, from the original trilogy characters? We're really getting away from them with this into new territory with a live action, because even The Mandalorian pays homage to at least the original stuff to a degree, and you had that great Luke appearance, which we really don't have to get into, but to me, it's one of the top trilogy scenes of all time, if you just ask me. But this is different than that. This is taking those characters and really doing something completely.
Let's have a discussion in a few weeks.
They're doing something that the sequel trilogy couldn't do, is that introduce new characters to the universe that are interesting, or reimagining them so they're interesting. You know, Boba, I go in Vlad's camp. Boba Fett was not interesting in his 3 appearances.
I'll tell you right now.
Empire, you know, it was just a cool costume, and that was it.
The idea was cool.
They did, which I
think none of us are Boba Fett fans, right?
Like redeemed in Mandalorian,
right?
And Mandalorian took how many characters from that were just kind of like whatever, and they made them interesting.
Right, and they had a hook. We got to see what Boba is, and I think there's people's expectations of who Boba was. I mean, if we want to take an example, if we want to sort of think about the sequel trilogy to what George is saying, we had all these expectations of when we first saw Luke, right? Again, when we first see Luke again, we're going to see Luke like Return of the Jedi Luke. We're going to see something like that, and we end up something completely different, right? Think about, you have all these fans of Boba Fett who feel like, oh, this is the ultimate badass. And in all fairness, he was a complete and utter badass in The Mandalorian. Go back and watch the scene when he destroys the freaking stormtroopers. It is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
That's where you're like, okay, I ain't Crow. I was like, okay, yeah, okay, he's a badass. And so far, you haven't really, we've talked about it, Frumpy Fett, right? That's fine, but he's made up for it since then. You know, he's fighting essentially naked, like Eastern Promises, against the Wookiee in the back of the thing, right?
He needs some tattoos,
right? He needed some tattoos, and that was an awesome. That's cool, you know. And I like that they're not making him that he needs help. That's where the team comes in. That's where Fennec comes in. All these things happen. I like the fact that
surprised me though, Vlad. Like, that's what maybe where my expectation, when I say I had no expectation, my only expectations that anybody who looks at him goes and says 2 things. Not, oh, we could test that guy. We ain't testing him. That's Boba Fett.
But they're testing him now because, you know. Because
of the fruity diapers. The fruity diaper brands.
No, because he's Boba Fett. He's Boba Fett. He's not, excuse my, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, he's not Luke fucking Skywalker.
No.
Okay?
No.
He's not. And, you know, that's why when you see Luke Skywalker at the end of The Mandalorian, season 2, and you see 5 years removed Return of the Jedi Luke, you see the Luke that the entire fandom wanted to see.
Right.
And you got it at his peak, full glory. And again, I'm repeating myself about The Mandalorian. You saw Boba Fett kick major ass in like a 5-minute scene, and you haven't had anything equivalent to that in 3 episodes of his own show yet. I'm not saying that's what we need. I appreciate the character development. I appreciate the nuance.
That's what I'm liking.
I'm gonna. What does he say? I'm gonna rule with respect, not fear. I like that. I'm all for that. I think it's honor. It's all about honor. Okay, fine.
And I do like the cast. I'll be honest with you. I like his robot. It's not a protocol.
Well, let's. George and I are gonna stand up for this one. Matt Berry is a fucking god. Yeah. If anybody here watches Walk in the Shadow, what we do in the shadows, Laszlo Cravensworth is Matt Berry.
Like little cool things that I'm liking, and I'm just enjoying it. So, you know, what I would tell people is, without spoiling things for them, and I don't think we have too much, is that it's just a fun show, and just go in with an open mind, and I think you could really have a lot of fun with it.
I think there's too much expectation, and I'm going to jump jump into Hawkeye for like a second. not every episode needs to be like a world-ending major threat. It can be fun just for the sake of being fun. It doesn't have to necessarily be something that's like, oh, it's going to have an impact on the Star Wars universe. You can just have something that you enjoy, and not have major character development.
Yeah. I think that's a good segue into Eternals.
Flip-flopping on my decision regarding Internals, though.
Yeah, I'd like to.
I'll stick with it, man. I think you enjoyed it. You enjoy it.
You enjoy it.
It's not because of that, because I just got thrown under the bus. So I'm not hating that.
I actually have a new, I call it the Eternals, but that's just me. But I'm going to open it up. Whoever wants to sort of start.
I think anybody that goes into Marvel movies thinking you're going to get the comic book version of that. So there's two things. There's two people I think that probably didn't have their expectations met and probably disliked the movie. Those who went into it going, I don't know who the hell these people are. I don't care who they are, so I'm not going to like the movie. Vlad. And then there's those that were like, well, this is not my Kirby representation.
Right.
I refuse to like this movie.
Can I throw in a third? Can I third group in there, if I may?
Let's try to clean it up, Vlad.
No, I'm not going to clean it up.
Didn't want to like the movie.
I'm not going to. I'd never said I didn't like the movie. I said that it is lower echelon Marvel. And here's the last thing. But wait, let me finish.
40 pages of a chat of you just attacking us.
But
saying we liked it.
I didn't attack.
Hey, who's us?
So I mean,
you were throwing up memes about us, pictures.
Who's us?
Heliopolis XD.
I'm sorry, me, but George, I appreciate you being on my side on this one.
Well, no. Don't pull that. Don't pull that shit.
I'm the only one that liked Eternals.
Don't pull that shit. Don't pull it. Wait a second. Wait a second.
Not.
Let's bring it back a bit. Two things. First things, let me put in the third group of people. Okay. Absolutely. There's people who have no idea who these are. They're not fans of the comics and they don't care. There's people that have expectations of who the Eternals are going to be and they're not met. And then there's people who suck at the corporate teat of any Marvel movie whatsoever and they like any movie that it is. Self-admittedly, certain people on this group like every Marvel movie there is, right? Okay? So, again, I never said it was... I do believe it is one of the lower tier Marvel movies out there. Okay, it's not, and also I believe that it's suffering because of timing of release when it was released. I think I agree with George when.
Well, that could be performance. That's not.
I'm not talking about performance. I am talking about expectations. I'm talking about what people are expecting. Marvel was coming off of the greatest run of probably any franchise. Take the Holy Trilogy, take Star Wars, take Lord of the Rings, take Harry Potter, take any of them. Best run, 22 movies, and they stick the landing, and then with an epilogue like a Spider-Man, they do okay, and then they off to a bumpy start. Forget COVID for a second. I'm talking about what they released. Everything got scrambled around. Eternals came out at a time where it was like, okay, people want something, continuity to what they had. Eternals would have been somewhere better suited, not at the beginning of a phase, maybe in the middle of a phase, or a television show where they can flesh out characters a lot more. They did it. Look, some of the Marvel shows have been great. I'm sorry, but 2.5 hours of self-seriousness after a while. I mean, it was beautifully shot.
Self-seriousness. There's so much humor throughout the movie, tongue-in-cheek humor throughout the movie.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something.
Pretty good, pretty well for me. They flesh out the lore around what
because you know those characters. Well, most people don't.
I think some characters suffered a little bit. Makari suffered a lot.
Right, she just appears, and
okay.
They kind of
just appears.
She just appears
like in the beginning. She disappears, and
All right, but let's we're talking over each other because we're passionate about this. I want George. You give us your 3-minute take on it.
I won't go 3 minutes. I enjoyed it.
Don't go as long as the movie went.
For me, again, it was ambitious. It's not, again, I agree with you, it's a lower tier Marvel movie. But that's, again, because of the fact that a lot of those movies were great, you know. But I enjoyed the story. I didn't think it was meandering. I think it flowed pretty well from the beginning. And, you know, the time jumps were a little, again, it was like reminded me of The Witcher, where it was kind of off-putting and like threw you off a little bit. On second viewing, they work out a little better because you kind of realize that, you know, whatever conversation they're having, they're flashing back to a reference point.
Okay.
But I do think it would have been better served as a Disney Plus show. It needed more time to flesh out the characters. You know, some character decisions just kind of came on the spur of the moment. And I think that's where it suffered a little bit. Again, and we're talking about a movie that's 2.5 hours.
2 hours and 36 minutes to be.
You know, but for me, it kind of like ticked a box of like this kind of cosmic Marvel thing that I do enjoy. Okay. You know, and I don't want to spoil it, but I guess the little plot twist was really interesting. I mean, do we go spoilers?
Spoiler alert! Yes. Are you talking about Icarus?
The fact that they're robots.
Oh, that thing.
You know, that they were created just to take out the deviants and prevent the deviants from allowing planets to grow so celestials are born. You know, so they kind of, and they also explain why they didn't get involved with Thanos. Because that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they realized, look, like, to go to your point, there's a moral decision there that they have to defy their makers for self, whatever that is, you know, freedom, self, you know, expression, and also others. They realize they're not just machines, even though they, like you said, they were made by something, but they were given free will. They're going to act on it.
Right. And some of them went on it, and the ones that kind of bonded with the humans, and you could tell which characters were going to, you know, go against their prime directive. Yeah. And it worked for the most part. I just think that it needed more time, and that's where like a 6, you know, episode Disney Plus series would have worked out better for them.
Keith?
And I do think they did touch on everybody's kind of voice even everybody's, because even Makari went crazy as soon as she heard Druig was hurt. And you know they had a relationship in between the fields.
Yeah, and I will say this. The deleted scenes that they cut out with Makari would have made the movie better.
Probably.
No, not probably. They did.
Right?
I own the movie. I saw the deleted scenes, and there's a whole scene with her talking to Druid about why humanity is worth it. Look at everything they did. Look at the way they actually came together and stood up against Thanos. Why would you cut something like that out? If this is an MCU movie, you talk about that stuff. I'm sorry. This is... You have to understand where I'm coming from this. I'm in that first camp. I never read the comics. I never read the Eternals. They're not for me. Vlad, did
they appear in any stories that ever interested you?
None.
Okay.
None. And full disclosure, Guardians were never something that I was into. But the difference between Guardians and this is, I think what James Gunn was able to do with the Guardians was instantly make them, first of all, it was a smaller group of people that you instantly care about quickly, compared to this, because you're brought into this very quickly with 10 characters. It's a little unwieldy that you have 10 characters. You have to sort of figure out what everybody is. That's number one. And Guardians had a pretty great story. I did. And Guardians is not one of my favorite MCU films. It's a damn good MCU film, but it's not one of my favorites. A lot of people feel like Guardians is top 5. It's good. But it's not. Now, this is the other thing I was going to tell you. Again, with Guardians, when Guardians was coming out, and obviously Gamora, there's a relationship with Gamora in that. Remember, we're in the timeline when Guardians came out. It's the build up to Thanos.
Yep.
So you have expectations from your audience. How is this tying into that guy in outer space who's going to court death? So there's expectations there. Think about Eternals. This is not a fair shot to Eternals, because Eternals, okay, you've just done the biggest thing you could possibly do. What are these guys going to introduce for us, and what's the thing? And then, spoiler alert, hey, we got the brother of Thanos showing up at the end of this going like, isn't he a little too late? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
But that's comics.
But you're also trying to utilize the Eternals as something that's going to be pushing the MCU forward, and I don't think that's what his purpose was. It was just to introduce a larger world to outside of that.
But I think the expectations of the the fandom. I'm not saying, again, I'm not trying to say that I think it's going to turn out to be more accepted the longer it's out now. People see it on streaming. They don't see it in the movies. Look, it was never going to be Spider-Man. I told you this guy's...
But everyone knew that. I mean,
everyone knew that, even Shang-Chi.
You can't compare an established character that, even prior to the MCU movies, had 5 movies with him.
Right. Yeah,
in pop culture also for 50, 60 years now, 70 years.
Right, but then what Spider-Man...
If you look at it outside of the realm of the mainline MCU movies as like a side story, it's interesting. Right. It's not going to be Doctor Strange, and pushing forward through some other craziness. It's just its own little side story of a larger chunk of the Marvel universe.
But they are setting it up.
Why Eternals though?
Like,
why in this particular moment? What within there?
Shang-Chi?
I think it's the connection in Shang-Chi. I think
that's a good point too.
But that's sort of the problem right now in not just Eternals. It's sort of where we're going in the MCU right now. Because there's 3 different sort of timeline end points that we're dealing with. We're dealing with Kang. We're dealing with whatever celestial situation is going out there. The beacon at the end of Shang-Chi. We're talking now at the end of Eternals. We're dealing with Blade and Black Knight. What does that have to do with it? And if you're a betting man, you'd probably turn around and say, okay, Star Fox and Pip and the rest of the Eternals are tied into that Shang-Chi.
So no matter what, fantastic. Whatever everything is, and this is my own fan fiction theory, it's all leading to Fantastic Four. Let me tell you why I think that is, I think everybody, and I believe it's true, everything they've set up is for Galactus to be the universal alpha predator. That to me they've set that up. I think they're kind of piecing that way to introduce, because you cannot have Galactus without the FF. Mm-hmm. You cannot have the Secret Wars that they plan on doing without Doctor Doom. Right? So those cast of characters are going to be integral to whatever the solution is to stop whoever is going to come to eat the Earth because that cosmic egg beacon went out. And I'm not saying the beacon from Shang-Chi, whatever it is, it's going to get done. That's my own thing. Like, I keep thinking about it in my head. I'm thinking, even with Kang and stuff, who do you need? Who has their, Dr. Doom used to go back and forth in time. He's connected to Rama-Tut.
Right. I think we got it. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you on any of that. I'm just thinking that the way that, we all have to temper our expectations, because here's the deal. It's, there's, like, everybody thought Mephisto was going to play a huge part in
I agree. That feint will get us, right?
And all that stuff. You have to realize, and this is where I'm coming from. So you got to take it from the sort of the Joe on the street who likes the MCU. Obviously, I've read my fair share, nowhere near as much as you have. But that deep level of stuff that they're going to get into, they're probably not. They're going to dumb it down to some extent. Okay, they will. They're going to keep it, but as I've said before, I always feel Marvel is going to sort of do the right representation, not an adaptation. They're going to do a representation, a true representation for the most part.
Yeah.
If we've learned anything over these last things, we can't speculate that deep into what it's going to end up being, because it could end up being something very simple. It could very well be.
Yeah, something. But to me, the only reason why I say FF is because
FF is coming.
Feige with the whatever phase 5, when he did the phase 5 and he closed with 4, everything's leading to 4 to me.
Look, I'll be honest with you. I mean, other than, they have to realize right now that Spider-Man, as much as I hate to say it, Spider-Man, and I want Keith to actually step in, because I need somebody to back me up on my Eternals hate, which it's not hate. I think Spider-Man is the heart of the MCU right now. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
You can argue all you want. And as much as I and I've said it a million times, I'm not crazy about Sony sort of being the unwanted guest at the MCU party who knows the proprietor of the restaurant says like, hey, I could throw this party, but you got to let me do whatever I want at this party. You know, like Venom and Morbius and all this stuff that they're doing. They hit it out of the park with No Way Home. I mean, no question, they hit it out of the park. And hopefully they can continue doing what they have to do. It's just Marvel really needs to get two things. They need to get FF and they need to get the X-Men. Stat. I mean, in the next 3 years, 4 years, they need to get those somewhere in there because, you know, the most exciting thing that came out of it is a new pre-existing character right now. It's Spider-Man. Okay? Mm-hmm. Black Widow didn't excite. I mean, obviously what happened on the shows to me were more exciting than some of the stuff that's happened in the thing. It's like, I think everybody's waiting for the next big, the Nexus, whatever that's going to be, whatever that thing is going to be. Go ahead.
So there's two things though. I just want to touch on one thing that Artie was talking about. Like, I think without the Eternals, it's easier now that the Eternals has come out, it's easier to introduce Galactus. Because they got like a lot of this cosmic level, you know, threats, like in outside of Thanos.
And okay, can I be devil's advocate here for a second?
Galactus is going to be something similar to that.
Galactus is going to be here to eat the Earth. Thanos took out the entire half of the entire universe.
Yeah, but that happens in comics too, Vlad. In comics, you have storylines where nobody existed before the main characters in a story, and they fought the most powerful guy. And then all of a sudden you found out there was a secret group of people living in the Alps somewhere with antlers on their heads and gems in their skulls. And they're called the Unknowables. And they existed for 1,000 years and they've been running around. And they have an enemy called Bangadoon. And Bangadoon, when he opens up the veil of the universe, he'll destroy all of reality.
I guess I have to be the guy who basically says that I live in a world where you have the Infinity Saga, which is essentially the original Star Wars trilogy, and then everything else that came after that, it's got to live up to it. You got to realize that anything that's coming after the Infinity Saga has to be.
It shouldn't have to be that way because with the Infinity Saga, you had 10 years of story building and build up to get there.
Right, but you still have residual. You still have residual stories.
They're allowed to have smaller stories like Black Widow, like Shang-Chi. But not everything needs to be a build up to the next thing.
Even a major story, though, can be important. Because think about let's think about the classic Marvel we love. Think about Miller's Daredevil, Simonson's Thor, and the X-Men, Byrne Claremont. Just put those together. They exist in the same universe. Those are all great effing stories, and they're as good as each other. Nobody goes and says that was not a seminal run on Daredevil, or that wasn't a seminal run on Thor. Like we look at that as a storyline,
but you also have to look at it a different way. You have to. I mean, I agree with you. But a comics medium is different than a movie medium. Right now, let's be honest. The only thing, what's making the most money at a multiplex right now? It's a superhero movie. I mean, it's a superhero. Oh. Marvel. I mean, how long is this going to last? That's what I'm trying to say. Is like I like that they're doing stuff on television because it kind of makes I've enjoyed all the shows. I really have enjoyed all the shows. But I want to take a second because I want Keith to step in here because I want him to say his 2 cents about Eternals. And I also am looking at the time because we may not be able to talk about Destiny.
I'll keep it short.
No, take your time.
Anyway.
No, I'll keep it short. I mean, like I said, I gave it a solid 5 out of 10. It's not good. It's not bad. It wasn't boring. It wasn't like actiony. It just was. I was, I think, disappointed that they didn't push more Kirby stuff, but at the same time, I understand why. And I think what they did was okay. I mean, the production was really nice. I think the director got too much. I think the movie and the director got too much flack because it wasn't bad. And I think, like we have said before, you're dealing with 10 characters. You're dealing with a story that probably like about 90% of the people who are into movies don't even realize who these people are and what they're about or even care.
Right.
And I think that they did make you care a little bit about the idea behind them. Were they great? No. I mean, I felt they were lacking. Like, I didn't feel like like you said, Vlad, if they didn't cut those scenes out, maybe I would have understood why they turned to be like, to care about the Earth so much that they wouldn't to forsake the mission, what they were supposed to do, which in the grand scheme of it was in a larger scale was something that they probably should have done. They probably should have killed a Celestial, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I just was like, I could see why people are like, what's going on? I'm hopeful, like you said, that down the line, it'll bring, it'll bear fruit, and that will be like, oh, wow, that's what it was. And then you can go back and look like, oh, this is great setup. Because I think they do that. They will do that. They'll be set up, but it's all there. And then we'll see it when it comes out. They might dumb it down, like you said, but even if they don't, I mean, I think it'll still be fun. And to counter the point of George, yeah, you can have small stories, but if you think about the first phase of the MCU, the smaller stories, which were like the Cap America, Iron Man, they had the benefit because those characters are so established. The newer ones, like the smaller characters, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, yeah, they're cool, but I don't know. They just didn't have that same oomph that the older ones had. But that could just be because I'm jaded now. And,
yeah, I think
we're old.
I don't think it's only old. It's
that Eternals missed an opportunity for me with Crow and the Deviants. They made the Deviants almost like a virus, and it goes in and they kill, and there's nothing to them. They're not like a race kind of thing. And even though they evolved Crow, you didn't get a personality except for a very snippet talking to Thena.
Did you know that was Bill Skarsgård? That was Pennywise?
Right. I saw it when I saw it in the credits.
Like, that's Pennywise?
There's that. I'm going to say something, and you guys are going to probably beat me up about it. They did some great superpower stuff in that movie. I
agree.
They did a better Justice League fight than they did in the Justice League movie. Mm-hmm. That fight with Icarus on the beach was, to me, just a great scene.
It was well done.
It was really well done. And just people using their powers, interesting. Everybody getting in their hits. Him showing them he's more powerful than them. And they're fighting their Superman, essentially. I thought that was great. And then the last thing I was going to say that I kind of like, another thing that I thought was kind of like that post-credit scenes. So I felt like the Black Knight one, Ebony Blade one, was out of place. And I don't know why.
Because Dane Whitman was shoehorned into that movie for no apparent reason. Other than he's the boyfriend, and then he shows up, and then again there was another cutout scene right before the earthquake where him and Sprite. Remember when Cersei shows up and she shows up late and she gives the speech to the students. There's a scene with Dane and Sprite outside in the museum, and Sprite is looking at a skull of a saber-toothed tiger that she shows that is actually really. She's explaining that that's actually really the skull of a deviant. And this and that and that, and there's all this other discussion. There's more fleshing out of him, and they're cutting all this stuff out. This is stuff that, at the end of the day, and the movie ends so abruptly on him. You're like, wait a second. If you blinked, you missed him in the movie, and now he's the last character. I'm not talking about the post-credit scene. I'm talking about the last scene. Mm-hmm. It's him looking for Cersei, and it's like, I'm like, okay, that you brought that up kind of abruptly. I'm not. It just feels like there were certain things that were a little off on it. I mean, not a little, very off on it.
So I'm going to say touch on something that Keith said in terms of like why they cared about the humans. I think they were establishing the fact that Cersei cared about the humans the entire time they were on Earth.
Yep.
Because she was the one that was like she was the one that was interacting with all of them. Druag the same way. He like the fact that they were doing committing all these atrocities to themselves. He's like, I could just stop this. Mm-hmm. So they were establishing, that which Eternals were kind of, caring about what the humans were doing to each other, and which ones didn't give a shit. So when it came time for that choice to happen, they were the more obvious ones. So you'd be like, okay, yeah, they kind of established that rapport the entire movie. And to touch on what you said, Artie, they did a better job with super speed than they did.
I love that. I told Vlad about that. I was like,
I thought.
Okay, let's
fight itself or something. The way they kind of did the speed, it didn't look as ridiculous as the Flash did in Justice League, which was
I'm not even comparing. I know we had these disagreements. I'm not comparing apples and oranges, but I do want to bring it around to sort of to what Keith said is in terms of wrapping it up, so we can go on to Artie's favorite subject, which is grade and where do you put it? Where do you put it on the scale of the MCU movies? Where is it? Below and above what?
So I think that's a great takeaway for us actually to do. Let's do a list. I know it's like homework, right? But I think that'd be interesting.
No, I'm talking about bullet right now. If you had to put it, where would you put it?
I would put it above Shang-Chi.
Okay, above Shang-Chi, but like what? Okay, can we all universally agree that the worst
mid-tier?
Can we? What are the worst MCU movies? The worst are the worst MCU movies? Dark World, Hulk, and Iron Man 2. Would you all consider that those are the
better than those?
I don't know. I enjoyed Iron Man 2, so like for me, lower tier is going to be like Shang-Chi, Dark World, and Hulk.
Okay, so where would you put it? You'd put it above that, right? You put it above.
I think it's above those. Yeah. I would probably put it above Black Widow too.
Yeah, I did. I told Vlad that too.
Black Widow gets by on
here's the thing for me. For me, it's here's what it is. I need to see what this pans out to, for me to be able to turn around and say like, okay, I understand what it's for. Because hopefully there's more of a story here that's going to be discussed. That's what that's
where it goes. I want to see where it goes.
Where would you put it, Artie? Where would you put it?
Who, me?
Yeah, you. Where would you put it?
I definitely put it just straight mid-tier. I like it more than I like the Ant-Man movies. I liked it more than I like Black Widow. I liked it more than I like Shang-Chi. I liked it more than I liked Dark World. I liked it more than I liked...
Did you like it more than Captain Marvel?
Yeah.
More than Captain Marvel. A lot of people crap on Captain Marvel. I didn't hate it as much as everybody else.
Okay. And actually, kind of like Captain Marvel, though, they kind of make you think that, like how the Skrulls were the bad guys in it, and they weren't. Yeah. The Deviants essentially weren't bad guys in this. They were just doing what they were programmed to do.
Keith,
that's the moral stuff going on in the movie. That to me, that's what made it fun. Like to me, what I really liked about it, I can complain about Icarus not having red on his costume and, Makari not having the red helmet and this and that. But I love the lore building in there, even if it's new and different. Yeah. I like that it made a bigger universe. I hated the way the Celestials look. And believe me, I wanted the Kirby look because it seemed pretty easy to me to do. Why didn't you just do Kirby with that, But
you didn't think it touched on like Arsham was kind of Kirby-esque?
I would have liked him thicker, and you're looking up at him and you see his big feet with the treads on it, and he's floating there like this with a staff or something. I would have.
You see, again, I'm bringing it back to you guys are going hardcore. You guys are going hardcore Kirby right now. And for the mass amounts of audience, no one knows that.
Most comic book people who read comic books today, they couldn't tell you who the Eternals were until the movie came out.
Right, and then even then, they're still like, "Who is the Eternals?"
What was the most Kirby-looking Marvel movie?
Kirby-looking Marvel movie?
Ragnarok.
Probably Ragnarok.
Yeah. Keith, you said 5, so you put it sort of smack in the middle of the whole pile of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I put it on par with like Captain Marvel, which wasn't. I didn't think it was that bad either. We're around that level where you guys kind of have it.
Yeah, I did enjoy Black Widow for the family aspects of it. I thought it was good. I just think that Black Widow, that movie should have come out sooner rather than later. And obviously now, in retrospect, sort of what I was saying about Eternals, the way that Yelena was sort of introduced in Black Widow and then sort of paid off in Hawkeye, which I enjoyed tremendously, sort of the way that they used it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, you get that kind of universe building. It's right into it.
Well, look, going back to Guardians of the Galaxy, like, as much as I love the characters in Guardians of the Galaxy, whether you like to, for me personally, I hate Star-Lord by the end of Infinity War. I'm like, you caused fucking Thanos.
And you fucking love Yondu.
Well, you love Yondu because Yondu goes out like a god in the second one. And honestly,
goes out like Mary Poppins.
And the second movie is one that's emotionally, there's a lot going on in it, but it's one that I haven't sat and rewatched many times because it's a ponderous film. The second one is a hard one to watch, but still.
I love the second one.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see what Gunn does with the third one. Again, we can talk about if we want to go in, Warlock being in it without Thanos. Again, you have Warlock without Thanos. You have Eros and Pip without Thanos. And you're like, okay, where are you going to go with this?
But Eros never.
Got lots of places
fine without Thanos.
Magus, Annihilus. There's so many things they could do with the bigger universe. Even I sent you that stuff on the Cancerverse stuff that they could do.
Yeah,
there's so many
I
things
doubt they're going to call. Let's be honest. I doubt they're going to call it the Cancerverse. Disney's not going to call it the
It's going to be whatever the MonsterVerse or
whatever the monster.
We
have less than 9 minutes left. We have less than 9 minutes left unless we decide to go over.
Yeah, I think we should start talking about Destiny. I think everybody got our opinions on the Eternals.
Before we start, can we just take a moment to prepare this situation because we need to introduce somebody at this point.
Iliopolis XD here.
Okay.
Who are you using?
Iliopolis XD. Okay.
Oh,
okay. So, Destiny. I'm going to turn this over to Artie.
So, those of you who don't play games, one of the biggest games I think for the last 7-8 years now since 2014.
Those of you who don't play a game.
A game. Vlad, yes, that's the only game I play. I got it. It's basically a space magic superhero action game. And it's been the game that I've been playing almost 5 hours a day, 10 hours a day on the weekends since it came out 10 years ago.
The game has passed me by.
So there's a lot of new things going on and new changes coming in with a new drop that's going to drop in February.
I'm not buying it.
A new season and a new DLC.
That you may or may not buy.
He's not buying it.
I'm not buying it.
He's not buying it.
I'm not.
I'm not.
When I started playing the game, it was a lot of fun because I came to it from Call of Duty, and I liked that I can play with Vlad and my other friends, eventually George and Keith, as well when they got the game and started playing with us. And you could play with your friends. It didn't take a lot of thought. You could just choose your gun, choose your class, choose your magical abilities, what they call supers in the game, and run with it. Used to be able to, as long as you were playing the game, you were guaranteed rewards. The game over time has morphed into do this over and over and over again to get a reward. Do this. You can't beat this champion unless you're wearing this mod. You can't do this unless you're with 4 people. You can't do this unless you do these 4 things first. I ain't got time for that. They've grinded the game to death. I can play
you just remember that we're recording this for posterity's sake because there's plenty of stuff out there that is going to contradict you at some point in the next 3 months. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know that. Like even now they had that.
He just admits it.
30th anniversary content drop, right? That should have been free content. There's no reason why we should have paid for that. It's just Bungie has just gotten to be a scumbag company like all these other
Bungie doesn't. I'm not defending Bungie.
Companies.
Yeah, but I'm not defending Bungie. But Bungie doesn't have an Activision behind it anymore. It doesn't. Okay, it's got to do what it's got.
I know. Poor Bungie. I got it.
Okay, but can we also
They told us themselves in the sandbox development is hard. I know it's very hard for them. You got physicians trying to, during COVID and an epidemic, staff hospitals, nurses, people around the country. Poor Bungie sitting on their asses at home can't develop a game in peace.
But can I ask you? Can I ask an honest question though, Artie? Okay, because fuck Bungie. Okay, fine. But can I get $100 worth? So you basically play Crucible and Gambit.
Well, the reason why I don't play the other stuff is because if they don't make it worth my while, I don't get anything from doing that. You see, I won't pick up a Scorch Cannon for any reason, right?
Because you're a lazy fuck. That's why.
We go into events or we go into content. You go, do you have your mods?
What are mods? What are mods? What are mods?
Yeah, I got them.
What are mods? And my favorite is this: we go into a freaking nightfall. We're struggling, and then you tell us an hour after the nightfall's over. Oh, I had the wrong mods on. And then you go and play with some other like Blueberry, and he's like, "Wow, this guy is killing people left and right. What's he doing? He's using mods. I have to learn how to use mods."
What? It's not like I can't do any of the content, right? When I wanted to raid, I go in ALFG and I'll raid. So it's not like I can't do it. It's just like,
do you know what that sounds like? It sounds like if I want to get laid, I'm going to go find a hooker. That's what it sounds like you're saying. It's like, George, what do you have to say about this?
I got nothing to say.
You guys already pre-ordered everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But think about this. I have to now relearn the subclasses that I had because they decided to retool it. So I have to go on quests that I don't like.
Can I ask you a question?
Which is going to be...
When they changed the subclasses, when you changed the classes from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, did you bitch this hard?
I didn't have to do anything.
Yes, you did. It was completely different.
It was one mission.
It's just Destiny, guys. It's Destiny.
Think about the station subclass. I only did it with one character. I fucking refused.
Can I ask you a question? What is your attention span?
Shoots at me with the guy who freezes you on the platform. I refuse to do that anymore.
You have the attention span of a fig. What do you think's going to happen?
I want to go kill things and be a superhero.
You want to kill things. What do you want to do? You want to turn into... Okay, I don't want to bring up the goat thing when you're killing people because that's what you love doing. Look at
that. What's the goat thing?
Look at what I just did to that guy. Look at the way he died. That's you. That's you. And then the minute we start doing any sort of content that requires us to do platforming, thinking, doing where am I going? What am I doing? What's going on? I don't understand what I'm doing. Oh, where are you guys? Why am I by myself? You're by yourself.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. Because when we were doing Vault of Glass to get everybody through it, was I not being the relic holder? Was I not being the one to tell everybody what?
Which makes it all the more frustrating.
This makes it all the frustrating because you've been a Sherpa for so long. The fact that I'm the one guiding you through shit, me, I should not be doing that. I do not live in that game. I do not have a ghost up my ass.
Should I have to do math?
Destiny forums.
Should I have to do math to figure out what my loadout should be?
Okay, back to what George just said, because it looks like we're going to go over, but that's fine. Honestly, how often are you on the Destiny forums, Artie?
Well, all the time.
Okay. This is for somebody who quote unquote says, the game has passed me by. I'm not playing it anymore. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm going to jump on right now and do some Crucible. I'm going to do this. Look what just happened. This is what happens. We ended up doing the dungeon. We jumped on and did the dungeon. That, to me, the last dungeon was some of the most fun stuff we've done. I'm sorry.
That is fun.
No. It's because okay, you didn't have to pick up a Scorch Cannon. You didn't have to pick up. I'm dying, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna go get these guys. Where's the Scorch Cannon? Maybe you can pick up the Scorch Cannon and shoot the hole. No,
because I'm telling you guys what to do. I'm saying I'm gonna get the two captains, the two leaders. I'm pinging them. You guys, you jumping around. I'm gonna go. You only want
to do the sexy stuff. You don't want to do the utilitarian things. You don't want to do the utilitarian things that you have to do. You don't want to work as a team about these things. You don't. You're complaining to me like, you don't pick up a Scorch Cannon. The one time you have to pick up a Scorch Cannon, you're like, what the fuck am I doing with this Scorch Cannon?
No, but you don't think it's a little weird for the content we're paying for, the seasonal model that they've gone to, where we get these horde modes that maybe last the first couple of weeks, very sparse content.
Okay.
That was the type of content we used to get for free.
But Artie, they were under Activision. They were under
Dark
Activision.
Below was the 1999, and there was like nothing to it.
Right? There was. I mean, look. At the end of the day,
that was the most fun raid we ever had.
Which one? Dark Below, Crota?
The Dark Below, Crota. Right. Think about how much fun we have never laughed at.
When the Dark Below came out. It came out a few months after, right?
Right. We have never had. So think about that. That's the most fun time in Destiny. I don't give a crap what any Destiny 1 player will tell you this.
Rise of the Machine was pretty good too.
Yeah, but we had a lot of fun running the lamps. I loved running Sword.
Mm-hmm.
I loved running
You
sword.
love being a superhero. You love being the guy.
It's a sexy thing.
The sexy thing. That's
But
what
it
you
was a
like.
fun thing to do together. You guys can do the content.
But when have you not complained? Look, I'm going to be.
All this has turned into is like gang up on him for.
Yeah.
You know.
So my question to you guys is, what are you looking forward to in the new content? Like, what do you looks cool?
Story.
It's
Destiny.
It's
story. It's Destiny.
It's jumping mechanics, great shooting mechanics. And
I agree.
Put up with the other nonsense because that's good, and you get to play with your friends. So
I also feel that the game for me is just like you have to space it out in terms of what you can do. It's like I can't get wrapped up too much in. So much of this stuff because it takes up a lot of time. It does, and it's you almost have to sit there and have a plan. Okay, I'm going to log on and I'm going to go for these pinnacles, or I'm going to do this. The game is very enjoyable to me is if there's a particular chase that has to happen, especially at the beginning of a season when you have to, and Artie, you know this. You're like, I need to get to 100 as quickly as possible. I need to get everything. I just didn't want to put it away. I like the story elements because I actually do believe that the story has been good this last year. The last 4 seasons, the story is building to something. Whatever.
But how good is the story going to be when they jettison all the content and nobody's able to figure out?
I agree with you there. That I think it's a mistake, especially for newer players, who you have all these characters in the game right now that have some sort of backstory and lore that you're never going to know about. And I think the further we're moving away from sort of, Cade, for those people who know, like Cade dying in Forsaken and all these characters that existed, it's like everything that we grew up with. Yes, we grew up with it. The game is 7 years now, right? Mm-hmm. I think we're at a point where some of that value gets lost. It really does get lost. They're
building it for people who have been with the game from the beginning. New players be damned, basically.
Right, and I just think that
I played from the beginning. I don't feel like they're doing anything for me.
But let's be honest. If anybody was very critical about Destiny, I was critical about Destiny 2 when Destiny 2 came out because we built all these characters up by the end of Destiny 1 that they basically brought us right back down in Destiny 2 because they took away all our light, they took away all these weapons and all this stuff, and I'm like, why did you create another game that you reset us completely? Because it's essentially what's happening right now over a bunch of seasons, right? I mean, again, I still think it's probably the most enjoyable experience that I'm having on a game right now. Now, mind you, there's other games out there, and I'm not trying to pick on you, Artie, but why I've been able to sustain is I've walked away from the game for a year or whatever, and I've come back and I've caught up and I've enjoyed it. But I also, even during that time, I'll find another game and I'll play something and I'll come back to it. And then I'm not as aggravated by the stuff. But I mean, think about everything. Like now, that's what I wanted to bring up. There's all this new stuff now about masterwork weapons, what they're going to do with masterwork weapons and orbs that just came out in yesterday's TWAB. That they're kind of weakening stuff that's going to happen. We have to do the whole thing with the Void, this Void subclass again. I mean, they're giving us the opportunity now for any masterworked exotics that we have. All we're going to spend is 10,000 glimmer. What is it? 10,000 glimmer and 1 upgrade to switch the burn on them, as opposed to having multiple.
I love the mechanics. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of fun in Crucible, even though I get frustrated when
Let's not talk about, but I'm talking about the story because I'm talking about the story. Yes, Crucible PvP. That's
all I
great.
want to do is if they could just give me Crucible and Gambit, we should just get on and do that together all day. But you drag me into other stuff. You guys, I've never said, "Hey, let's go play Crucible," and you guys go.
You're the one complaining. You're the one complaining why there are people in Iron Banner that you're not killing because they're higher level than you.
Yeah,
because you never chase
dumb.
your.
That's dumb.
No.
Today I was playing this one guy. I'm like 120, whatever, 1322. He's 1330. He's the best player that ever in. He came in with his Trials armor. He's 1330. He's killing everybody with 1 shot. I'm sitting there pegging him. I'm like, why isn't he dying? And I saw he's 1330.
And what?
Like, go play with some, other bunch of
tryhard losers. But all I'm saying is, you're a great player. You're a great player. You are. You're a great player. The only thing that you should be doing is you should be chasing pinnacles to get your pinnacles, to get your level up, so you can do everything that you do. You've already gone.
You handicap yourself, and then you wonder why you're losing out to people.
You handicap yourself, and here's the thing: I've learned, since I'm personally not a great PvP player, I focus on the PvE stuff. I focus on making sure that I'm bringing my characters up as quickly as I possibly can. On that side of things. And that's why Why are we doing an X? Why are we doing it? Why are we doing an Exodus
I'm looking forward to it. I'm not. Look, I won't. I don't plan on buying it. But
Crafting.
If we're going to play it.
Crafting.
If we're going to play it together, we sit, we talk. The wonderful thing I'll give anybody who's interested in playing Destiny that has other people friends of theirs that might play the game too. It is a game where you can get on with 4 of your friends or 3 of your friends, depending on the content that you're doing, and really have a good time just chatting while you're playing. Because there's enough stuff in the game to kind of breeze through while you're chit-chatting with your friends. Like most of the content we can do just bullshitting.
So bullshitting, but also what else is coming out when you're bullshitting? You're complaining.
Not me. I would never, ever complain about it.
We did that too with Outriders, where we were able to get on, chat, and just play through the game.
Yeah,
or Diablo, Diablo.
I think we did that with
Division.
What other games did we do that with? Wow, so many.
Yeah, all those good games. The only game, look, at least in Destiny.
No good game for bit you in the ass.
It's got to be a third. You need so the reason why I like Destiny is because it.
Can you say that again? The reason you like what?
It's the mechanics, like you guys were saying and Keith was saying. There's really no other game that I've played
ever.
I tried Overwatch, I tried Apex, I tried Fortnite. Even trying every so often to inch my way
Space
back
Invaders, Centipede.
You just don't get the mechanics. And when Destiny works really well, you get a really power experience using your
Did you
character.
ever play Halo? Yes, you did play the original Halo, but not the original campaign. Because you got to realize that at the end of the day, it's Bungie. No, Halo.
Oh, Diablo is just button mash.
Dude, don't get me started. I'm not going down the road. I'm not going down a K-hole with you about Diablo.
Let's play Diablo.
No, but you'd play Dungeon Siege 3, which is basically a Diablo clone, and you'd be like, that's one of the best games I've ever played. And
Dungeon Siege, I played Dungeon Siege. That was good.
I rest my case. I rest my case.
Diablo is
for smart people?
Edgelord fanboys who have this crazy idea that fantasy is guys with armor with spines coming out of the sides.
And a jumping space superhero that you are in Destiny is no different, right?
What is it? Destiny? I'm a superhero. I got a cape. I can turn invisible. I do flips. I jump in the air and I shoot people in the head with an Icarus grip. Dude, Keith, George, because you don't play a hunter often, Vlad, but if you play a hunter, every hand cannon you should have.
By a guy who's
Icarus.
You should never put anything on it but Icarus grip.
What would you put on it if you're going into a Grandmaster Nightfall? Watch him glaze over. Watch him glaze over now. What? God, what?
No, but that's what I hate. That's what I don't like about the game.
You basically
to go. I've killed gods. I killed.
Wait a second. With this one,
I killed this person.
You've DM'd games. You've DM'd games. In Dungeons and Dragons, you've done all these amazing things where you're thinking out all these details, but the minute you get to Destiny and somebody says you got to think a little bit more and do a few more things to it to get it to work properly, all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's like, I can't do it.
Look, you don't tell Van Damme to stop doing splits, okay?
Oh, God. I think we've gone over time.
Yeah. We'll have to revisit.
I think we have to revisit it in about a month. But I want to thank everybody for joining this week and bearing with us.
If you've made it to the end, congratulations.
If you've made it to the end, congratulations.
You need to edit. That's all I have to say.
So I'm not editing this.
Go see Eternals.
I'm not gonna. Go see Eternals. Go see Eternals where in the movie theater.
Get on your ass like I did with a Stromboli and just watch it.
And the Stromboli.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna say till next week.
Come see us next week at the podcast Cosmic. Anyway, I love you guys.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Okay. It was good talking to everybody. See you next week.
See you next week.
Yeah.